My Girtfriend has princess syndrome. I fully support her, but I worry about drawing unwanted attention. Despite my concerns, she broke up with me. Before watching the video, I ask you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and write any comment. The most interesting comment will be included in the next videos. Thank you to each of you. Enjoy watching. I'm Ryan, 27 years old, male, and I honestly don't know if I've been the dumbest boyfriend alive or just the most loyal. My girlfriend, Emily, 25, used to joke that she was a princess trapped in the wrong era. It started out cute, honestly. She'd wear tiaras to brunch, refer to our apartment as the castle, and call me her knight. I thought it was a harmless roleplay, like quirky theater kid energy that somehow carried into adulthood. But over time, it wasn't a joke. Emily really lived like the world owed her reverence. She didn't want to walk anywhere. She expected me to drive her, open doors, carry her purse, even when it was just the two of us grabbing groceries. If someone at a restaurant didn't treat her like royalty, she'd leave a nasty Yelp review that read like a medieval execution notice. I should have seen the red flags stacking up, but I kept telling myself, she just wants to feel special. She had a rough childhood, let her play pretend. We met 3 years ago at a bookstore. She was in a pale pink dress, standing in front of a women in history section, literally wearing a tiara headband in broad daylight. People stared, but I thought it was bold, maybe even magnetic. We started talking, and she told me straight up that she only dated men who could treat her like royalty. I laughed and said, "Well, I don't own a castle, but I can make a mean omelet." She smiled, and that was it. Hook, line, sinker. I fell hard because when it was good, Emily was enchanting. She could light up a room, make strangers stop mid-conversation with her confidence. She'd tilt her chin up like she was posing for some unseen portrait. Being with her felt like being tethered to a star. Blinding, magnetic, impossible to ignore. But it came with shadows. Emily didn't just want me to play along, she wanted everyone else to. If someone at a party didn't treat her with the deference she thought she deserved, she'd stage a scene. If I didn't correct people when they called her cute instead of stunning, I'd get icy silence later. Once, at my buddy Mark's barbecue, she threw an actual fit because his wife joked that Emily was high maintenance. Emily hurled her wine glass into the grass and stormed out barefoot like a scorned queen. The worst part? I defended her every time. I kept telling friends, "That's just how she is. She's passionate." My parents weren't buying it. My mom once whispered, "Ryan, she's not a princess. She's a ticking time bomb." I brushed it off, convinced that love was about loyalty, not judgment. But deep down, I was terrified, not just of losing her, but of what her theatrics might escalate into if someone finally pushed back. I'd lie awake imagining her melting down in public, throwing plates in a restaurant, screaming in the street, and me being dragged right into the spotlight with her. And no matter how much I wanted to keep her safe in her fantasy, I knew one day it was going to explode. Emily's princess thing didn't stop when we shut the front door. If anything, that's where it got worse, because behind closed doors, she didn't even try to pretend it was a game. Our apartment turned into her stage set. She insisted on calling our bedroom the royal chambers, and she decorated it like some bizarre blend of anthropology catalog and medieval drama. Velvet pillows, silk curtains, candle holders shaped like crowns. I didn't mind at first. It was her taste, and honestly, I thought it was kind of fun. But then it shifted from aesthetic to rulebook. She had rituals. Every night she expected me to run her a bath, light candles, and sit on the floor next to the tub like some attendant waiting for instructions. If I got home late from work and said I was too tired, she'd sulk for hours, sometimes refusing to talk to me until the next day. She started saying things like, "A real knight wouldn't hesitate to serve as princess." I laughed the first few times, but eventually it stopped being funny. It felt like she didn't see me as a partner, just as background staff in her fantasy life. Sex got weird too. She demanded I praise her beauty every single time, like out loud, scripted compliments. If I forgot or just wanted to be normal, she'd accuse me of treating her like a peasant. I can't even explain the mental gymnastics I was doing, trying to balance loving her with not feeling like an actual prop. The scariest moment came during a fight about bills. I'd just gotten home from a brutal shift at the warehouse, sat down with our utilities spread out, and asked her to cover her half the internet. She froze like I'd spat in her face. Then she laughed, this cold, sharp sound, and said, "Do you think queens worry about Wi-Fi?" I snapped back. "Queens also don't live in a rented two-bedroom above a laundromat, Em." She went ballistic, screamed so loud the neighbor knocked on the door to check if everything was okay. Emily was pacing, red-faced, flinging throw pillows at the wall. At one point she grabbed my phone, threatened to hurl it off the balcony because knights shouldn't disrespect royalty. I got it back from her, but that was the first night I really felt unsafe. Like if I pushed her the wrong way, she might actually break something, me included. The next morning she acted like nothing had happened, made pancakes, kissed my cheek, called me her faithful knight. I should have walked out right then, but love, or maybe fear, kept me tethered, because I thought if I abandoned her, she'd shatter. But in the back of my mind, I could hear my mom's words echoing. She's a ticking time bomb. Things really started unraveling once Emily took her act outside of her apartment. At first it was little things, snapping at waiters, complaining if a cashier didn't greet her properly. But soon it became full-blown performances. One night we went to this nice Italian place downtown. Nothing fancy, just pasta and wine. I'd been saving up to treat us because money was tight, and she'd been hinting she wanted a royal feast. So I made the reservation, put on a button-up shirt, and tried to make it special. The hostess sat us near the kitchen instead of the window, and Emily froze like she'd just been handed a death sentence. She demanded we be moved. The hostess apologized, said the window tables were reserved, but offered a quieter corner booth. Emily's voice got sharp, cutting even. "Do you know who I am? I'm not some peasant you stick by the swinging doors." My stomach dropped. People were staring. I tried to diffuse it, told Emily we could just take the booth, but she shoved her chair back so hard it screeched across the floor. If my knight truly loved me, he wouldn't let me be humiliated like this. Then swear to God. She stormed out of the restaurant, tiara headband glinting under the dim lights. I paid the hostess double the bill just to apologize, cheeks burning the whole time, and found Emily waiting outside. She was crying, makeup streaked like she was the victim of some grand injustice. She clung to me, whispering, "You should have defended me." I held her, but inside I just felt small, like I was shrinking into her shadow. And it wasn't just strangers. She started dragging my friends into her world, too. Mark, the same buddy whose barbecue she'd stormed out of, invited us to his birthday at a bowling alley. Low-key, cheap fun. Emily showed up in a full floor-length gown. People laughed at first, thinking it was a costume joke, but when she realized no one was treating her seriously, she lost it. Accused them of mocking her, knocked over 2 pitchers of beer, and screamed that she was surrounded by traitors. That was the last time Mark invited me anywhere. Honestly, most of my friends pulled back after that. Who could blame 'em? Being around Emily was like carrying a grenade with the pin already halfway out. Even my job wasn't safe. At a warehouse holiday party, she got drunk and cornered my manager's wife. Told her she looked like a maid trying to pose for nobility. My manager didn't say anything that night, but Monday morning he pulled me aside. Ryan, I like you, but you need to keep your girlfriend under control. She's embarrassing you, and by extension, me. I nodded, apologized, promised it wouldn't happen again. But walking out of his office, I knew it would happen again, because Emily wasn't going to stop. She didn't want to stop. And the scariest part? She was starting to believe her own fantasy. The night everything snapped was a Friday in late spring. I'd just gotten home from work, exhausted, wanting nothing more than to collapse on the couch. Emily was already dressed up, floor-length satin gown, hair curled, tiara perched on her head like she was about to walk into a coronation. "Where are we going?" I asked, dropping my work bag. She looked at me like I was an idiot. "The banquet." I blinked. "What banquet?" She sighed like I was the slowest squire in the kingdom. "Mark's company fundraiser. I told you, we're attending as honor guests." I hadn't been invited. Hell, I hadn't spoken to Mark in months after the bowling alley disaster. I tried to tell her it wasn't a good idea, but Emily had already decided. And when she decided something, resistance just meant escalation. An hour later, we were walking into this upscale downtown ballroom. I felt out of place immediately, everyone in suits and cocktail dresses, and Emily floating through the crowd like she owned the place. Heads turned. Some people smiled politely, and others just stared. She thrived on it. She introduced herself as Lady Emily, shaking hands like she was bestowing blessings. I hung back, cheeks hot, praying we could slip through the night without disaster. But then she saw Mark. He was with his wife, laughing with a group near the bar. Emily stormed over, cutting through the circle, and announced, "You dishonored me at your last gathering. Tonight, you will apologize." The music didn't stop, but the conversation around us sure as hell did. Mark froze, face pale. His wife tried to laugh it off, but Emily wasn't backing down. She grabbed a champagne flute from a passing tray and threw it at his feet. Glass exploded across the floor. Security came over instantly. I tried to calm her down, whispering in her ear to just leave. Instead, she shrieked, "My knight will defend me!" and shoved me forward like I was supposed to fight Mark in the middle of a charity event. That was it. My manager was there too, and the look on his face said everything. My job, my reputation, my friendships. They were all hanging by a thread. I grabbed Emily's arm, pulled her outside before security could toss us out, and hissed, "Do you have any idea what you just did? You embarrassed me. You embarrassed yourself. You humiliated everyone." Her eyes went wide, then glassy. "So you choose them over me?" I exhale, cold and tired. "No, Emily, I'm choosing reality." And that's what she did it. She slapped me. Hard. In the middle of the sidewalk outside the venue, under the streetlights where the people streamed past us. My ears rang. My vision went white. For a second, I just stood there stunned. She gasped like she was the one who'd been attacked, then burst into sobs so loud that a couple across the street stopped to watch. She clung to me, screaming, "Don't leave me! You can't abandon your princess!" And right there, on that cracked stretch of sidewalk, I knew the truth I'd been avoiding for months. If I didn't get out, Emily was going to drag me down with her. That night, I started planning my exit. Update. Wow, I didn't expect my story to blow up like this. When I first posted, I figured maybe a handful of people would skim it and tell me I wasn't crazy. Instead, I've been drowning in comments, DMs, even emails. Some of you made me laugh out loud when I really needed it. Like the guy who said I should knight myself, "Sir, done with this shit." Others hit me hard with stories about your own exes who thought they were royalty. A few of you even said Emily sounded dangerous, not just dramatic, and yeah, that slap outside the fundraiser proved it. For those asking what happened after, I didn't go home with her. I left her crying on the curb while I Ubered back to my place. I felt sick the whole ride, like my body finally caught up to what my brain had known for months. She wasn't just quirky or high maintenance. She was unstable. The fallout started immediately. Mark texted me the next morning. "You're lucky they didn't press charges. Security was ready to call the cops. We're done, man. Don't reach out again." My heart sank reading that. Years of friendship gone. My manager also called me into his office. He didn't outright say, "You're fired," but the warning was crystal clear. Keep your personal drama away from company events. I nodded, apologized, but inside I knew my career had just taken a hit because of Emily's meltdown. As for Emily, she went full nuclear. I got home that night to find rose petals on the floor, candles lit, her in a satin robe waiting for me, like she hadn't just humiliated me in front of half the city. When I told her I needed space, she screamed so loud the neighbors banged on the wall. Then she smashed one of my framed photos, me and my dad fishing when I was 12. That one cut deep. My dad's gone, and that photo is one of the few keepsakes I had. She collapsed after, sobbing, begging me not to abandon the princess. I didn't say a word. I just grabbed a blanket and slept on the couch while she cried herself out. And here's the kicker. The next morning she acted like nothing happened. Pancakes again, smiles, calling me my knight like the previous night was a bad dream, but it wasn't. And I'm done pretending it is. I know a lot of you said just leave. And you're right, but leaving someone like Emily isn't simple. She doesn't just let things go, she escalates, she threatens, she performs. And part of me wants her to feel the weight of what she's done. Not just walk away like she won. So yeah, I'm planning something. Nothing violent, nothing illegal, but something that'll shatter her illusion of being untouchable, because she's been playing princess this whole time. And it's about time the kingdom revolts. It's strange how boring the planning part felt, like doing taxes or changing a flat tire, and how electric the moment of execution became. After the slap, after the smashed photo and the fundraiser debacle, I stopped pretending the problem was a personality quirk. It was behavior with consequences, and I started treating it like the problem it was. First, I collected things, not because I wanted to humiliate her with gossip, but because facts hit harder than feelings. There were screenshots of her text demanding I announce her as my +1 at work events. There was the security summary from the ballroom. A terse note that security nearly called the cops when she threw a glass. I had pictures of the broken frame, timestamps from my bank where I'd paid to move the dinner reservation after she stormed out, and a handful of messages from friends who'd stopped inviting us because she's unpredictable. None of it was sexy or cinematic. It was receipts. Boring paper, tiny screenshots, plain truth. I did something I'd sworn I wouldn't. I turned those receipts into a narrative, not a smear. A timeline. A short, calm document that said, "This is who Emily is when she escalates." I wrote it like a mechanic would write a diagnostics report. Facts, evidence, timestamps, witness names. I sent that document with careful, measured language to 3 groups she lived off. Her influencer friend circle, 2 mutual friends who'd been gaslit into silence, and the one local cafe where she always staged photo shoots and expected preferential treatment. I didn't post the document publicly. I didn't need to. What I did instead felt quiet and surgical. The cafe manager, a woman who'd watched Emily rearrange the place for lighting without asking, agreed to host a community meeting the following Friday. Nothing about couples, just a talk about respect. I asked 2 friends to come, not to gawk, but to be witnesses. I asked one former friend to read the timeline out loud because her voice was steady when mine shook. The night of the meeting, Emily showed up wearing a new tiara-like armor. She'd heard. Of course she had, because once you're the center of drama, nobody can help but gossip. She swept into the room, the kind of entrance she'd practiced in mirrors. I stayed in the back and watched her scan for the crowd she expected to bow. That's when I handed the manager the single sheet, the timeline printed and bound with a paperclip. The manager read it aloud. No theatrics, no music, just facts in a voice that didn't crack. People murmured. A couple who used to laugh at Emily's stage moments looked uncomfortable. A former friend sat forward and quietly described the time Emily had trashed a mutual friend's birthday because the cake wasn't regal enough. Emily's face went slate. She reached for the manager, demanded the paper back, and then, and this is the brutal, honest part, she escalated exactly like I'd feared. She screamed. She shoved the manager. Candles were knocked over by accident or design. Someone's latte spilled. She grabbed a framed print on the wall, one of those cheap artsy things, and threw it against the counter. Glass shattered. People recorded. A barista tried to calm her and she shoved him. Someone called the police. Afterwards, when the adrenaline drained, the sweet part of what I'd done arrived slowly like a cold wave. Her carefully curated life, the brunch, the staged apologies, the little businesses that loved her aesthetic, began to look different through the lens of documented behavior. Messages arrived, brand DMs asking if the reports were true, friends unfollowing, one of the photographers she freelanced for emailing that he couldn't take the liability. The ripple was immediate and practical. Her throne began to wobble because the people who propped it up preferred not to be associated with chaos. She didn't take that sitting down. That night she came to my truck and slashed a tire. She spray painted fake across the hood. She plastered my number in a private neighborhood chat with a long, breathless post about being abandoned and betrayed. And people started calling my work. My manager forwarded screenshots to HR. She showed up at my job one morning and screamed that I'd ruined her, which, ironic as hell, just made the security footage even more damning. I won't pretend it felt good watching her break my stuff. It hurt. It was escalation. But every time she escalated, there was consequences now she couldn't perform away. Police reports filed, witnesses who'd left their names, a tire that needed replacing at my expense, and a restraining order paperwork waiting in a folder on my kitchen table. The revenge, the thing that actually landed, wasn't the social collapse. It was turning her performance into evidence. She'd been able to command the room when people laughed with her. She couldn't command it when people didn't want to be her props. And in the small, bitter quiet of that week, as I sat in the driver's seat with the spare tire in the back, I realized the cost of this was far from over. She'd already weaponized other people. Friends, event guests, the manager she shoved. Now she was weaponizing the law and the spectacle against me, and I had to be smarter than that. The kingdom wasn't pretty anymore. It was rubble, and she was burning through it like a pyromaniac who thinks everything she touches is a torch. I didn't regret the timeline. I regretted the wrecked truck. but I also knew, with a calm that surprised me, that I'd finally stopped being a character in her story and started writing the next chapter for myself. I thought the worst was over after Kayla, my ex, trashed my apartment, screamed at my neighbors, and tried to make me out as the villain. But no, her version of moving on was straight up warfare. The morning after she stormed out, I woke to the sound of glass crunching under my boots. My car, my one pride and joy, was vandalized. Deep, jagged scratches ran the length of the driver's side door. Someone had keyed the word traitor across the hood like some twisted scarlet letter. I knew instantly it was her. Kayla never handled rejection quietly. She needed to make a scene, to brand me as the villain in her little princess fairy tale. And sure enough, by noon, screenshots started flying around mutual friends' group chats. Kayla had posted a teary video on Instagram, mascara streaking down her cheeks, claiming I'd abandoned her after everything she sacrificed for me. She said I hated women with standards and couldn't handle her shine. I almost threw my phone across the room. The comments were a mix of her friends hyping her up and random strangers telling me to rot. But buried in the replies were a few cracks. People asking why she still lived in her spare apartment downtown if she'd supposedly given up so much for me. Others pointed out how often she had posted with Julian, her ex, long before the breakup. The truth was leaking out, slow but steady. That night I came home from a long shift at work to find my garage door wide open. My stomach dropped. Inside, my tools, some passed down from my dad, were scattered across the floor, and the beer fridge was smashed like someone had kicked it repeatedly. On the workbench was a single sticky note in her loopy handwriting. Real men fight for their queens. I was shaking with rage, not just because of the damage, but because this was her message. She thought she could still control me through chaos. She thought fear would make me crawl back. Instead, it lit something inside me. That night, I decided I wasn't just going to defend myself anymore. I was going to end this on my terms. Kayla thrived on drama in the shadows. Cryptic posts, whispered lies, late-night vandalism. But if there was one thing she couldn't survive, it was exposure. Real exposure. So I started gathering screenshots of her texts, proof of her double life with Julian, photos of the damage she caused, and even her public meltdowns caught by neighbors' security cameras. If Kayla wanted to play the princess, I was about to show everyone what kind of tyrant she really was. And the opportunity came faster than I expected. Her upcoming birthday bash at downtown, a party she'd been bragging about for weeks. The one where she swore she'd show everyone she was winning. I smiled to myself for the first time in days. Perfect. Emily's birthday party was the kind of event she lived for. Weeks of Instagram teasers, glittery invitations, a countdown, cryptic captions like, "Every queen deserves her coronation." I knew half the city was going to be there. Influencer friends, old classmates, even some of her co-workers who'd been sucked into her orbit. It wasn't just a party. It was a stage. Perfect for what I had planned. I didn't crash it. That would have been too easy, too reckless. Instead, I made sure the truth walked in before I ever had to. Remember that timeline I built? The evidence? Screenshots, security footage, texts, witness statements. I had it condensed into a 5-minute highlight reel, spliced together by a buddy who edits promo videos. It looked polished, professional, undeniable. And thanks to one of Emily's old friends, who'd quietly cut ties but still had her trust, that video made its way onto the projector set up for her birthday tribute. I wasn't there to see the moment firsthand, but I've heard it described in delicious detail. Emily standing in the center of the room, tiara sparkling, drink in hand, basking as her guests clapped. She was ready for a slideshow of glamorous selfies and inside jokes. Instead, the screen flickered, and then her voice filled the speakers, screaming at a waiter for not calling her ma'am. Another clip, her throwing a glass at Mark's fundraiser, then security cam footage of her slashing my tire, spray painting fake across my truck. Screenshots of her text to Julian calling me a peasant I keep around for errands. The room went silent, then gasps, then laughter. Not the kind Emily thrived on, but the cruel, sharp laughter that cuts. She screamed at someone to turn it off, but by then phones were out, recording every second. Guests started backing away, embarrassed, muttering. Her own co-workers slipped out the door. By the time the projector finally cut, her kingdom had crumbled right there under the glitter balloons. She called me 30 times that night, left voicemails ranging from sobbing apologies to shrieked threats. I didn't answer. The next morning she posted a long, rambling statement on Instagram, claiming the video was fake, that I deep-faked her. But nobody bought it. The clips were too real, the timestamps too clean. Brands she'd courted unfollowed her. Friends unfollowed. Within a week, the Princess Act didn't just look silly. It looked pathetic. And me? For the first time in months, I slept without waking up in panic. My apartment was quiet. My truck had a new coat of paint. My friends, even Mark, slowly started reaching out again. It wasn't perfect. Some damage couldn't be undone. But I wasn't shrinking in her shadow anymore. Emily always wanted a crown. In the end, she got one, but it was made of broken glass, handed to her by her own reflection, in a room full of people finally seeing her for what she really was. And me? I walked away with something better than revenge. I walked away free. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and like it. You can also watch more shocking stories in the playlist.